Okay, let's dive into this explainer. I want you to literally transport yourself for a few minutes. Imagine stepping into the shoes of a completely terrified, ant-like spectator at the most horrifying, heart-pounding, avant-garde fashion event on Earth. Today, we're exploring a breathtakingly vivid concept from our source material. It's a hyper-realistic, high-fashion reimagining of Charlotte Linlin, infamously known as Big Mom from One Piece. But we aren't just looking at her from afar. We're experiencing her imposing presence right from the ground up, standing shoulder to shoulder with a terrified crowd as high fashion meets pure, insatiable gluttony.
To really wrap our heads around this spectacle, we have to establish the eerie atmosphere of the room before she even makes an appearance. Picture the sheer claustrophobia of standing in this massive, tightly packed crowd. Right in front of you is the runway, but it's definitely not a standard catwalk. It's an elevated structure shaped like a colossal candy castle. And then, clouds of cotton candy fog swirling around her start to pour off the stage. At first, it's a visual marvel. Thick, deceptively sweet cotton candy fog rolls right over the edge, wrapping around your ankles. It feels whimsical, almost magical, as the fog thickens around you.
But oh man, that illusion of whimsy shatters so quickly. You see, the initial sweetness of that cotton candy fog gives way to something fundamentally wrong. It twists into this nauseating, suffocating scent of rotting sugar that actively chokes the terrified audience. Ground yourself in that sensory detail for just a second. You're trapped in a sweating crowd, the air is thick with the cloying, decaying smell of spoiled sweets, and panic starts to ripple through the spectators. The environment itself is literally signaling that something monstrous is approaching.
And then, the ground beneath your feet begins to shake with massive rhythmic thuds. 8.8. That is 8.8 meters, which is nearly 29 feet tall. That's the sheer trembling scale of the horror we are talking about here. As the fog parts, Charlotte Linlin emerges. She is this majestic but absolutely terrifying figure towering nearly 3 stories above you. From your vantage point down in the crowd, just craning your neck upward to look at her size alone is enough to induce pure vertigo.
Section 1. The Cursed Silk Gown, Balenciaga's Nightmare Creation.
Now, what's really interesting to look at here is how once you actually manage to process her monumental size, your panic gaze is forcefully drawn to her garment. Because this isn't your standard fabric. The source material describes a bespoke Balenciaga gown, taking high fashion straight into the realm of the supernatural. It's stitched from cursed silk, but the true horror? It lies in the embellishments. The gown is layered with living teacups that clatter and shift with every single earth-shaking step she takes. And worst of all, the silk is embedded with screaming confectionery souls. These aren't just spooky patterns. They are trapped, living entities agonizingly woven right into the very architecture of the dress.
And this brilliantly illustrates such a jarring, nightmarish contrast. On one hand, you have the concept of Balenciaga haute couture, right? It represents the absolute pinnacle of luxury, exclusivity, and meticulous human craftsmanship. But on the other hand, there's the visceral horror of living, screaming souls trapped within the fabric, and forces you, the terrified spectator, to witness the ultimate corruption of beauty. Luxury here is literally built on top of endless, agonizing torment, paraded right in front of your eyes.
Section 2. An ominous orbiting glow, the light of Zeus and Prometheus.
So as you try and completely fail to tear your eyes away from the screaming faces trapped in her cursed silk gown, your perspective is dragged upward by the lighting. Now, in a normal fashion show, you'd have bright, clean spotlights tracking the model, right? But in this nightmare, Zeus and Prometheus orbit her with ominous, glowing expressions. These are her elemental companions, and they're circling her massive head like twin celestial bodies of doom. It's their glowing expressions that act as the spotlights for this avant-garde nightmare. They project a sinister, flickering glow that continuously re-illuminates the cursed silk and casts dancing shadows over the screaming souls trapped within it. The lighting itself feels alive, and it feels deeply hostile.
Section 3. The Queen Devours All, Ants in the Presence of Majesty.
Okay, so we've established the smell of rotting sugar, the impossible 29-foot scale, and that cursed silk. Now think about the crushing psychological impact this has on you, the tiny spectator, as she makes her final world-shaking walk down the runway. The source material gives us this perfectly evocative quote, "Fans look like ants screaming in worship." And honestly, from your horrifying vantage point on the floor, looking up at this titan wrapped in screaming souls, that is exactly what you are. the audience is reduced to utter insignificance. All the prestige of attending a high-fashion runway event just evaporates. You're just an insect, part of a swarm, screaming in terrified worship as she glides past. You realize she isn't just walking the runway. The Queen of Hunger is devouring it.
I want to conclude our explainer today with a pretty chilling question. When the Queen of Hunger devours the runway, are you a spectator or the next course? It's a profound shift in perspective, right? It leaves us pondering our absolute, terrifying vulnerability in the face of Big Mom's gluttonous majesty. It really shows how combining the structure of haute couture with sheer overwhelming terror creates a truly unforgettable visual narrative. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this vivid breakdown has given you an entirely new, albeit completely terrifying appreciation for this conceptual